Good morning and welcome back to Margin. This morning we're going to talk about if you own a home, it may be time to sell it. So let's jump right into it. So do you own a home? And probably the better question right now is, should you sell it? Now, depending on your situation, I would err on the side of yes. And I have some reasons why. So let's talk about that. So we've all heard the saying that what goes up must come down. So why do we believe that that markets should be any different? That markets shouldn't experience a cooling off, a downturn of some kind? And why the housing market, of all things, should not experience that as well. We almost think it's untenable, it's impossible, or even laughable that we would experience another downturn. So I think the best argument I've heard for the housing market to continue climbing like it is right now is the lack of housing for the pent-up need and demand that we're currently experiencing, resulting in housing shortages. Based on how many different people are trying to buy a house and are currently unable to. However, I believe that this is still short-sighted, and even though I feel like this is probably the strongest argument, I believe it's short-sighted, and that is because it's not factoring in affordability, economic conditions, and people's willingness to actually work, just to name a few. Now, the US continues to experience the largest bull run in history, and of course, housing has followed suit. So the last downturn had a great deal of focus on the housing market. Now, many of us lived through that time, experienced it firsthand, saw the loans that were being produced, assuming that housing would just continue to climb, and there was no reason to think otherwise. Now, since that time, we've been in this place where we've had massive gains in that market because of how large that correction was. Now, although reputable people have been predicting a recession, a slowdown, a leveling off of sorts for years now, it seems like no relief is on the horizon for the continued low supply and resulting surge in home prices that we have seen. Or is there? Or are we starting to see some of these indicators? Now, people are leaving high cost of living locations in droves, working remote or taking other positions in less populated, less expensive locations across the US in search of space, quality of life, amongst a number of other aspects. But this is actually causing those markets to be flooded with inflow from various locations across the United States. So we looked at examples of these submarkets that continue to gain large amounts of inflow from other locations. But if you are not in a location that seems to be experiencing this inflow, and in fact may be experiencing outflow, what do you do? So if prices are stable and maybe they're even still growing in your area, you may consider striking while the iron is hot, as a slowdown or a leveling off is inevitable. So we have had and are continuing to experience a massive supply chain interruption across many industries, whether you're looking at technology or you're looking at vehicles and the associated chips necessary to produce those vehicles and get them out on the road. And we also continue to struggle with the labor market. Now, we have a massive backlog of people who have been protected under the rent moratoriums, under the unemployment added benefits, under mortgage forbearance, and even student loan forbearance. So no matter where you stand politically, the backlog of all the unintended or maybe even intended consequences to people not working over the last 18 months or so are beginning to be seen. Now, this is not only with the supply chain components, but it's also in the service industry and across the board. And I believe this will be worsened in your area if you're experiencing massive relocation or outflow from your area. So what does this have to do with whether you should sell your home or not? And I believe it actually has more to do with this topic than you would think. So when programs end for unemployment benefits and people need to start paying their rent, their mortgages, utilities, and student loans again, there will be a large amount of people deciding to opt out of going back to work, at least at their current employer, their previous employer. And we're beginning to see this. We're seeing this massive amount of people who are moving on from their prior employers and looking at different options. So what does this mean for housing? It means that there will have to be downward pressure on prices as demand lessens, especially in areas that people are fleeing. So think about the life cycle of your current area. At what price point did you purchase your home at, and where are things currently sitting at? Now, if you purchased your home, let's say maybe 10 years ago, then you're probably sitting with a good amount of equity based on what you purchased your home for. And it's probably gained a lot of equity over that period of time. Now, I'm not encouraging you to just sell your home because you have a lot of equity, as you would then need to go buy a home in the current market conditions as well. But what I am encouraging you to do is to look at how long you plan to stay there, whether the home actually fits your needs, and whether you can afford the home. Now, if you are not planning to stay, the home doesn't fit your actual needs, and you're simply house poor because of that home, consider selling it. The market demand for your home may not be better than it is right now for years to come. Now, as I started off this episode with mentioning what goes up must come down, we're just looking at typical life cycles of economics. And when we're looking at that, it's important to understand not only where we're at in the life cycle of housing, but also know what your strategy is. Know whether, as prices continue to climb, if that's a good option for you to opt out and sell your home, move to a different area, or if it is something that you have the equity to be able to take the hit if there is a correction and when there is a correction. But from that point, it's really important for you to figure out what your personal finance picture needs to look like. And if you are not leaving yourself susceptible to a level of risk with a downturn by not having options set up and being prepared for that. And so that's really what this comes down to, is making sure that if you have that equity, if you are interested in moving to a different area or the house no longer fits you, that you are factoring in the components that may be critical for where you want to go in life, so you don't end up getting stuck in a certain area because you missed the life cycle of that area, and then you end up having to hold on to the house for years to come. So my call to action today is to really think about whether it makes sense to hold onto your home when prices are peaking like they are. And if you do plan to move and the home no longer fits your needs, or if the home is just unaffordable, this may be a perfect time to sell and move on. If this information is helpful to you, please do like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you're reminded to come back on a daily basis and improve in managing your personal finances. Thank you for your time, enjoy your day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.